I live in Africa, in this black land whose maps were drawn by the white people. They traced points and lines where I can only see rivers, valleys, deserts, jungles, waterfalls and big mountains. I have heard the old men telling that those people came from other lands and took our metals away, traded with the ebony and the ivory, even with my own people. They involved us in wars that did not concern us, and they managed to divide us. But they left a long time ago. Now they say that Africa is independent, and that my name means hope. But I believe they are still here, with their pharmaceutical industries and their oil companies. With their money, they buy our soil and the will of those who govern us. They purchase our goods and our best lands without giving anything in exchange. Actually, they did bring terrible disease as the AIDS and the Ebola. And now that they are in the middle of a big economic crisis, they have also left us the worst of that crisis: the unemployment, the hunger and the poverty. My grandmother says that there was never so much hunger in Africa as there is now. Neither so many disease, nor so many wars. That way, I can understand why my brother Abdul, who sees miracles, says that he can hear at night the hooves of 4 horses galloping through Burkina Faso and Sudan, through Ethiopia, and the region of the Great Lakes, and covering the whole African continent from one end to the other. It is if they were the raiders of the war and the hunger, of the suffering and the desperation, lands of beautiful legends and old superstitions. That must be the reason why, when I'm sitting at my house entrance, under the big baobab trees, I see some men and women coming from very far away, who want to leave this land and go looking for a better world. It is said on television that, up to the north, crossing the sea, there is a continent called Europe, and there are Africans who throw themselves into the sea on little boats, hoping to reach that land which will make them rich. But my friend Ernest, who is studying in Europe and often travels to Africa, since he is participating on an international cooperation project, tells me that he will come back and stay very soon. And sometimes he explains to me with enthusiasm and hope his plans on what he calls the future of Africa. He says that we have to make young people enthusiastic with the future of this beautiful land. And we must explain that the small open boats called cayucos and pateras, which leave our coasts, are not a bed of roses, but very risky and dangerous trips, and that some people leave their soul on the way, after having paid to the mafia for half of their lives. For many of them, the cayucos trip was hell. They spent the days with no water or food. At night, when darkness turned everything black, they crowded together in the boat to fight the cold and the fear. They could just pray that tragedy did not happen.
The trip has been so hard with the problems we found in the patera, and also the harsh days we had to spend at sea. We got lost, and we had no water or food for 5 days. There were too many problems.
He explained to me that sometimes the sea sucked down all their dreams and hopes, that there are many African dreams buried on the cold and icy waters of the sea, The old people from my village talk about travelers to nowhere, boats sucked down by the sea, corpses appearing in these shores before the eyes full of tears of their loved ones. And they say that those who came back with the word failure written on their forehead told terrible stories of the sea at night, of cold on their bones and pain in their souls. The African mothers have organized themselves to avoid their children getting lost forever within the sea waves.
I only had one child, who has disappeared together with 80 of his friends. It has been so difficult. It has been very hard because this is a community where men are held in high regard. A community where a family that only relies on women is considered to be a family which is going to disappear. The girls get married, they leave for the new marital place, and the family disappears.
There were others who went through jungles and deserts to reach the borders by land. This was also a route of hardships and obstacles, and some of them fell into the hands of mafias, which stole the very little they had from them. Sometimes, at the end of the way, only a miserable camp of the mountains of Morocco is waiting. A camp where they spend the days hidden, waiting for an opportunity that it looks like it never arrives. Alain's story is eerie.
I crossed the frontier in Cameroon into Nigeria, from Nigeria to Niger, and from Niger I tried to reach Algeria. There, I began to realize the trip was really difficult, since I will never forget the trip to the desert, the harshness, the risks of the trip. Because they leave us 80 or 100 kilometers away from the desert. Since it is a clandestine trip, the drivers cannot enter Algeria, because once the police catch them, they go to prison and their car is confiscated. So, better than running the risk, they prefer to risk our lives, and they leave us 100 or 80 kilometers away from the desert, and we have to go walking after 10 days and much tiredness. I believe that is why so many people are left behind in the desert.
There are some who ended up with their dreams on the wire fences erected on the frontier between Africa and Europe. My friend told me that. In the south of Europe, an African from Mali was paralyzed by falling off one of those borders between Morocco and Spain.
When I was crossing there were roadworks on the road, and we were walking at night, raining, and I fell into the roadworks. I fell into the void, and I ended up like this.
Other ones, as soon as they reach European soil, are arrested and get some expulsion papers which do not allow them to work and earn a living. And they have to walk from one village to another, lost, with no job or home, sometimes living on the charity of the church or other social entities, or working illegally on the hardest jobs that nobody wants, for a very short period and for less money, aimlessly and with no future. Not everybody is lucky and finds a job, and that way they are spending the best years of their lives. It is true that, even though some of them managed to work in Europe, they often had to live through more nightmares than dreams. A more decent and human way to emigrate should be achieved. It should only be done with documents and papers in order. The risks and hardships of secrecy are not worth it for any human being. So a famous Senegalese musician who lived in Europe and now has become back with us says,
They do not know what they will find, and that is the fight I am fighting here. Making them aware of the reality so they do not risk their life to go to a country where they do not know what they will find.
My friend Ernest has told me that, with Alain, there is a group of Africans that has created an NGO in order to make their compatriots aware of the risks of underground emigration. And he says that there are more and more African people and social organizations and entities which think that Africa has another future and other real possibilities. That it will be a long way, but it is a way full of hopes.
The strength of this NGO is that we are all volunteers. We buy handicrafts and we sell it on holidays and Christmas to collect money.
Ernest has also told me that his friend Udman has an NGO which works for his African country by building a little hospital and a medical center.
There is a shortage of technical materials. We need a generator because the electricity goes off and we do not have enough running water.
Once and again, he tells me about the people and organizations he knows and about these projects and his dreams. He has told me about programs of hospitals and schools, health campaigns, women who organize themselves to improve their training and their future, wells and water pipes, agricultural cooperatives and companies, stock breeding and trading programs. There are people who are prepared for all that. People from Europe and other places all over the world, and of course, people from Africa. Ernest says that he knows many who are already working as cooperants and volunteers, communities and groups of missionaries and members of religious orders. Several institutions and social organizations, together with many other African people who have been organizing themselves for a long time and are already fighting for the prospects of this land. They are friendly hands, owned and foreign, which daily insist on another future. They are like little oases against extreme poverty, disease, famines, ignorance, violence against women, child exploitation or overpopulation, and they will be gradually spreading to every corner until they become big woods and rivers of future and hope for the African continent. That is why he is determined to involve the young people, because they are the only ones who can channel all the energies of rebelliousness and dissatisfaction, all their dreams and hopes, and turn them into an unstoppable force to fight with courage and with generosity for a more prosperous land.
There are many young people who try to leave, but with the current difficulties and the economic crisis affecting Senegal, it is complicated to get 500,000 or 400,000 francs to get on the patera and travel that way with the risks the trip entails. Even so, there are young people who still try it, but very often they meet the front ends. These are the forces established by the European Union here on the beach. Then, that is the problem the young people who want to travel have to face.
I also dreamt of leaving once. But between the dream of Europe and the future of Africa, I have decided to fight, together with the people who stay here, who are not willing to give up. Those who fight for a more brotherly and beautiful world. Gradually, step by step, day after day, we are going to improve this land, contributing our effort, nourishing everybody's hope, dreaming of a continent where one can live with freedom, where everyone can live with dignity in his own homeland. Building schools where boys and girls learn together the foundations of a fairer society. Africa is worth it. From Africa, we, the young people, can build a different future, more beautiful, brotherly and supportive. The young people have a strength that nobody will be able to stop. I have decided to resist, together with Ernest and my people. You can do whatever you want, or whatever you can. There is a world out there that is also yours, but I have decided to stay here, so that once and for all, the ships of oblivion stop departing from my land. For the future and the hope of a land that dreams to be free and independent, because it is possible.